Hello everyone, I'm Peter Anderson and I'm going to talk about the Alice Wrap project. I'm really sorry that I cannot join you at this meeting. I'm running the Alice Wrap project together with Anthony Gual and he will be able to answer all your difficult questions. So what is Alice Wrap? Alice Wrap means Addictions and Lifestyles in Contemporary Europe, the Reframing Addictions Project. It is a €10 million project co-financed by the Social Sciences and Humanities Bureau of the FP7 research programme of the European Commission. It involves well over 100 European and global scientists and runs for the 5 years, May 2011 to April 2016. It is coordinated jointly by the Foundation Clinic for Biomedical Research in Barcelona, TONI, and by Newcastle University, me, where I hold a chair in substance use, policy and practice. Alice Wrap is a multidisciplinary project with a wide range of disciplines ranging from anthropology to toxicology. It is also a truly transdisciplinary project involving stakeholders, primarily policymakers, in its inception, its execution and dissemination. In fact, we are also studying the project itself through network analysis and the transdisciplinary orientation of the project. In this presentation, I shall introduce the 6 main areas of work in Alice Wrap. I shall then continue with some 3 important framings. I will conclude with 3 simple messages. First, we grossly underestimate the harm that addictions can do to the health and well-being of individuals, families and communities. Second, we tend to go about dealing with these problems in the wrong way by blaming and stigmatising individuals for their behaviour, unnecessarily criminalising many individuals for their behaviour, and giving too much leeway to profit over health. And third, we can manage these problems much better by creating environments that make healthier choices the easier choices. The first main area of Alice Wrap is to document how societies and professional views of addictions change over place and time. We are undertaking historical analysis, studying stakeholder views, and reviewing media portrayal and public understanding of what is meant by addictions. What we are finding is that there are a multitude of concepts of what is addiction that change over place and time and are dependent on who you ask. Clearly, there is a need for some reframing and some common understanding. The second main area of Alice Wrap is to define, count and cost addiction. We will come to defining later. In terms of counting, we are collecting data from all European countries on the prevalence of what is understood as dependence on alcohol, tobacco and illicit drugs, and gambling. It is proving extraordinarily difficult, and this is a finding in itself. In 3 countries we are estimating the social costs from the 3 groups of substances and gambling, including estimates of the social costs of harm to others, and then modelling avoidable costs through policy implementation. The third main area of Alice Wrap is to study determinants of risky use, problematic use, and people moving in and out of dependence from a wide range of individual and societal factors, estimating transition probabilities between use and risky use, and between risky use and problematic use. This is no easy task either, considering all the potential determinants acting at many different levels. It is also no easy task given that a neurobiologist and a sociologist mean very many different things when they talk about addiction or a determinant. We do have many different disciplines around the same table, but I don't think we have yet cracked bridging the different scientific languages different disciplines use. The fourth main area is to understand the profit motive that drives addictions. Here we have an extraordinary number of approaches, including estimating the size of the business markets. We're interviewing drug dealers in prison, we're trying to get a better understanding of corporate social responsibility programs, we are assessing the impact of marketing also in heavy users and people who have developed people who have stopped use due to problems, and we are studying webs of influence. How does big business influence policy? An interesting finding is that it is quite difficult to interview the business leaders in this area. With the tobacco companies, they are so alienated from public health that they no longer have communication divisions that would normally respond to such interview requests. The alcohol industry is getting so nervous that they are being framed like the tobacco industries, that they do not want to be interviewed. You may think this is a good thing rather than a bad thing. I think it is a bad thing. Unless you accept and recognise conflict, there's nothing that you can do about it. And you cannot recognise or accept conflict if you cannot talk about it. The fifth main area is the study of governance. Governance means the way that societies manage things, and it is not just about governments. We are studying the ways European countries currently manage addictions and considering how science can inform better future governance. We have developed a 4-quadrant matrix and found that there is much room for improvement. The quadrants range from an individualistic crime and disease approach to a well-being approach, and from an individual substance-based approach to a comprehensive policy-based approach. Only 1 in 4 of the 28 countries studied are in the well-being comprehensive policy-based approach. The 6th and final area is studying young people, the target customers of the big businesses. We studied the extent to which existing policies are young people friendly, how young people negotiate the balance between emotion and cognition when it comes to addictive substances, and how can you better study resilience building amongst young people. In general, we seem to be finding that existing policies and practices are not particularly youth friendly. This whole process is a complex machine to manage and run. And we put a lot of investment in network building and crossing boundaries of fields of study and boundaries of disciplines. This is not an easy task. We also put a lot of investment in communication, using our project website to the full, and social media to stimulate debate and discussion and to promote our findings. So far, we have come up with 3 big reframing ideas. The first is to do away with the term dependence, and instead talk about heavy use sustained over time. It is heavy use sustained over time that leads to the brain consequences of dependence, the phenomena used to define dependence, the social consequences of dependence, and the health outcomes attributable to dependence. Heavy use sustained over time is much easier to operationalise and define, and probably much easier to understand than dependence. It also gets out of the dichotomous trap of considering someone to be either dependent or not dependent. I guess that there will be many that do not like this approach. It reminds me of a conference that I was asked to speak at in Calgary in Canada, hosted by the then Addiction Research Foundation of Toronto. This was soon after the report we produced by the Royal College of General Practitioners in the UK, Alcohol: A Balanced View. In that report, we wrote that we do not subscribe to the view that there is such a thing as alcoholism. Rather, we looked at a continuum. I was asked just to say just this at the Calgary conference that was largely attended by psychiatrists and physicians, and I did so. And I have never experienced such a ripple of astonishment and indeed resentment that spread throughout the audience. Needless to say, the organisers were very pleased that I said this rather than them. The second reframing idea is to reframe our understanding of addictive substances and behaviours in a societal well-being frame. Well-being is easily misunderstood. Most people perceive well-being as personal well-being, but what we're talking about is societal well-being, which is made up of a number of structural elements, not only physical and mental health, but also personal security, education, employment, work-life balance, transparent governance structures, social integration, and sustainability over time. All of these structural components impact on personal well-being, but they also impact the use of addictive substances and behaviours, and are in turn impacted by the use of addictive substances and behaviours. For example, inappropriate employment structures increase the likelihood of sustained heavy drinking, and in turn, sustained heavy drinking reduces the chance of employment. A wellbeing approach allows better joined-up action across different governance sectors and frames, for example, illicit drug policy as being negative to personal security and social integration, being in prison, even though it might hold down some health problems. The third reframe is to state that we need to promote accountability through measurement. Here we are developing, for want of a better phrase, an addictions footprint. This is modelled on the carbon footprint. We are all aware of the carbon footprint, which measures carbon dioxide output and methane, recalibrated for its carbon dioxide equivalent, produced by an entity or an organisation. The central reason for undertaking a carbon footprint measurement at any level, be it national, organisational or local, is to reduce the risk of climate change through enabling targeted and effective reductions of greenhouse gas emissions. A carbon footprint promotes accountability, is an advocacy tool and monitors change, and can be applied to nations, regions and cities, sectors and organisations, products and services, and even at the individual level. As a tool for addictions governance, we aim to prepare an addictions footprint as a measure of addictive substance-related disability-adjusted life years, produced by actions of an entity. Again, the central reason for undertaking an addiction-caused DALI footprint measurement at any level, be it national, organisational or local, is to reduce the harm done by addictions through enabling cost-effective programmes and policies. It also promotes accountability. For example, how many DALIs does a particular global alcohol producer cause? In concluding, I want to make 3 points. First, we tend to grossly underestimate the size of the problems when it comes to addictive substances and behaviours. Just take this one indicator, disability-adjusted life years for tobacco, alcohol and illicit drugs. In 2010, these were second, smoking, fifth, alcohol, and 19th, illicit drugs, in ranking of importance of 67 risk factors studied as causes of global disability-adjusted life years, having moved up from third, smoking, 8th, alcohol, and 25th, illicit drugs, in the ranking in 1990. My second conclusion is that the level of harm is driven by profit. We humans were exposed to many addictive substances in our evolutionary development, but only in minuscule amounts. The problem is that we are now exposed to these substances in huge amounts, and our brains and bodies cannot deal with them in a healthy and meaningful way. The brain reacts to many of these substances by fooling us to thinking that the rewards we get from using them far outweigh the harm that they cause, whereas this is blatantly not the case. Many companies and individuals make a great living out of this by putting profit motives for themselves ahead of individual and societal well-being. Just think of the tobacco, alcohol and gambling industries. The illicit drug business, although not a formal industry, does just the same. Governments tend to fail to regulate these industries sufficiently on behalf of the people and tend to blame, stigmatise and criminalise individuals for their problems. Which brings me to my third and final point. Changing the social and physical environment is far more effective in making healthy solutions the default social option than changing individual behaviour alone. Such solutions can be made by governments at all levels and are not costly solutions. Raising alcohol taxes even raises public revenue. As America's President Roosevelt once said, the state's paramount concern should be the health of its people. We hope that the science generated by ALISRAP will inform so that governance of addictive substances and behaviours can be better redesigned to improve the health and the well-being of the world's people. Thank you very much for listening.